Violence against women. Violence against women and girls is one of the most systematic and widespread human rights violations. It is rooted in gendered social structures rather than individual and random acts. It cuts across age, socioeconomic, educational, and geographic boundaries, affects all societies, and it is also a major obstacle to ending gender inequality and discrimination globally. The United Nations defines violence against women as any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or psychological harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or in private life. So the term gender-based violation and the violence against women was used interchangeably in literature. So these two are different. So gender-based violence refers to violence directed against a person because of his or of her gender and expectations of his or her role in a society or culture. Gender-based violence highlights the gender dimension of these types of acts. In other words, the relationship between female subordinate status in society and their increased vulnerability to violence. It is important to note or to remember that men and boys were also victims of gender-based violence, especially in sexual violence. Gender-based violence includes domestic violence. So these are the violences that from your partner or from other family members. Rape and other forms of sexual violence, female genital mutilation, early and forced marriage, economic control, coercion, and emotional abuse. So what causes violence against women? Violence against women happens because men and women are not equal. So there are many factors to consider why this happens, violence against women. So a recent study found that gender inequality at the national level in education, access to employment, economic and property rights, freedom to marry and divorce, predicted higher levels of partner violence as these settings where male authority over women's behavior is considered normal and where violence against women was widely seen to be acceptable. So, ani ang mga lalaki kanang gihimo na lamang murag ginormalize na lamang ng ang male may authority sa mga women's behavior, then ang violence against women gi-accept na pud lamang. Dayon, is it possible to prevent violence against women? So there are several international human rights agreements which require states to prevent and respond to violence against women. So there has been some progress, but most of the states which have signed and ratified these treaties have failed to implement these obligations. So, legislation alone is not enough. It must be promoted and enforced. Support services must be available to women escaping violence, including access to shelters. Ultimately, the key to ending violence against women and girls is in transforming traditional gender roles and power relations. changing the attitudes and beliefs in which allow violence to continue. So, drawing on the experiences and expertise, Ethiopia, Ghana, and Zambia, the report shows that the most effective interventions to end violence against women and girls are community-based. Also challenge attitudes, norms, and behaviors. These include men and women, empower women and girls, promote self-led change, make a long-term commitment to communities, gain support of traditional and religious leadership, increases awareness and understanding of the issue among government officials, and supports women's access to comprehensive services. So, increasing women's agency and mobilizing women to come together to know and to claim their rights is critical in combating violence. This includes providing women-only safety spaces, supporting women to become financially independent, providing training on rights, and supporting women to take leadership positions.
There are types of violence. These are the violences in the home and the violences by the state. Violences in the home include domestic violence, psychological violence, economic violence, and harmful tradition practices. Of violence in the home. Domestic violence. Women are more likely to be victimized by someone that they are intimate with, commonly called intimate partner violence or IPV. The impact of domestic violence in the sphere of total violence against women can be understood through the example that 40 to 70% of murders of women are committed by their husband or boyfriend. Studies have shown that the violence not always perpetrated as from the physical violence but can also by psychological and verbal. Psychological violence. In abusive relationship, a person receives innocent messages such as "I love you," but "I hate you," or actions such as "I hug you but insult you." What happens that is that confusion follows, making a person even more vulnerable or permissive. This process happens progressive in the more it is done. The easier it is the abuse of a person, such as the reality that she is less visible. This phenomenon is called dissociation in the psychology, and it is used to solve cognitive dissonance of two opposite messages. Economic violence. Avoidance of responsibility regarding household expenditures. Harmful tradition practices. Traditional cultures practice reflect values and beliefs held by members or a community of periods, often spanning generation. Harmful tradition practices. Forced marriage, child marriage, female genital cutting, or honor crimes. And dowry, female infanticide, and the last is trafficking and women. Violence by the state. Conflict situation, the systematic use of rape and other forms of sexual violence have been recognized to be weapons or what against women. Women living in conflict situation are subject to sexual violence by armed groups, security forces, and even peacekeeping troops. Women face familiar violence in refugee camps where they often become victims of sexual violence of guard and male refugees. Labor camps. Many women underwent extrajudicial punishment in labor camps on Nazi Germany. On the Soviet Union, their suffering was described in the memoirs of former Gulag when prisoners Evgenia Gensburg, Sposenia Kinsovskaya, and others. War and militarism. Militarism produces special environments that allow for increased violence against women. For example, during World War II, the Japanese military established brothels for soldiers exploiting women for the purpose of creating access and entitlement for men. Violence in the empowerment system. Women's shelter workers are often reduced themselves of contributing to violence against women by exploiting their vulnerability, exchange, or a paying job. On the other hand, violence by the state includes conflict, weakness, labor camps, war and militarism, and violence and empowerment